There's this frequency. I started noticing it a few years ago, and once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Some people are tuned in, most aren't. You can tell immediately when someone's receiving the signal. They walk into a room and the whole energy shifts, not because of what they say or do, but because of how present they are. Like they're operating on a different wavelength. I've been on a lot of sets, met a lot of people, actors, directors, crew members, strangers on the street, and there's something some people have that others don't. This quality of being here, really here. And when they're around, kindness just happens. It's automatic. But here's what's strange. I don't think it's a skill they learned. I think it's more like they remembered something the rest of us forgot. You know how when you're really listening to music, you're not thinking about your problems or your plans. You're just in the music? That's the frequency I'm talking about. Some people live there. They're tuned into the present moment like it's the only station worth listening to. I've spent a lot of time thinking about mortality, what it means, how it changes you. When you really understand that this is all temporary, this conversation, this breath, this moment, everything shifts. You stop taking presence for granted because you realize how rare it actually is. Most of us are broadcasting on the worry station or the regret station or the planning station, but there's this other frequency, this present station, and when you tune into it, kindness isn't something you have to try to do anymore. It just is what you are. What if kindness isn't something you do, but something you remember how to tune into? Like a radio station that's always broadcasting, but we're usually listening to static. And what if cruelty is just being off frequency? Like when someone's cruel, they're not receiving the signal. They're tuned into their pain, their fear, their story about how the world works. But the presence frequency is still there, waiting. I started watching this more carefully, how presence works, how it spreads, how one person tuning in gives others permission to tune in too. Because I think this might be the thing we're all looking for without knowing we're looking for it. The frequency of actually being here. You know how you walk into a room and you can feel something, not what you see or hear, but something else. Like there's this invisible field of energy that tells you what's happening before anyone says a word. I started paying attention to this on film sets. There's always this moment when you walk onto a new set for the first time. Within seconds, you know if it's going to be a good shoot or a difficult one, not from the budget or the script or the equipment, from the energy in the room. Some sets feel tight, anxious, people moving fast but not efficiently, conversations that stop when you walk by, that feeling like everyone's waiting for something to go wrong. But other sets, there's this calm, people working with focus but not stress. When someone makes a mistake, there's this collective, no big deal energy. Laughter that isn't forced. You can feel people actually enjoying what they're doing. The difference isn't the work itself. It's usually one or two people who are broadcasting on that presence frequency. They're not trying to manage the energy in the room. They're just fully here. And somehow that gives everyone else permission to relax into the moment. There's this invisible thing happening, like gravity, but for emotions. Some people create a field around them where presence becomes easier for everyone. I remember this one director I worked with, never raised his voice, never seemed stressed, even when everything was falling apart, which it was, constantly. But when he was around, people found solutions instead of problems. Not because he was solving everything, but because his presence somehow made space for creativity instead of panic. It's like bandwidth. Most of us are operating on limited bandwidth because we're running so many background programs, thinking about what happened yesterday, planning for tomorrow, managing our image, protecting ourselves from judgment. But some people have cleared all that noise. They're running on full bandwidth, completely available to what's happening right now. And when you're around someone like that, you can feel your own bandwidth opening up, like their presence is contagious. I started wondering if I had this quality. Could I tune into that frequency? Was it something you're born with or something you develop? So I started experimenting on sets and conversations, just walking down the street. What happens when I stop thinking about what I'm going to say next and just listen? What happens when I stop managing how I'm coming across and just show up? And I discovered something interesting. When I'm fully present, when I'm tuned into that frequency, kindness isn't something I have to remember to do. It's automatic. Like when you're really listening to someone, really hearing them, your natural response is compassion. Maybe kindness isn't an action at all. Maybe it's just what happens when you're fully here, fully available to what's in front of you. But here's the weird part. But here's the weird part. What if time isn't linear, at least not for healing? I mean, physics tells us time is relative, right? Einstein showed us that time bends, stretches, moves differently depending on where you are and how fast you're going. Maybe compassion operates outside normal time too. I've noticed something strange about kindness. Sometimes when someone's genuinely present with you, when they really see you, it doesn't just help in that moment. It somehow changes your relationship to things that already happened. When I've lost people I love, there's this weight that comes with it. Not just the sadness, but all these moments that replay in your mind. Things you wish you'd said, times you weren't as present as you could have been. The past becomes this heavy thing you carry around. But then someone shows up for you, really shows up. They're not trying to fix anything or explain anything away. They're just there, present. And something shifts. Not just about the future, but about the past. It's like their presence now changes the meaning of what happened before. The facts don't change, but the story changes. Those moments when you weren't fully present, when you were distracted or worried or just not tuned in, somehow they'll become less important than the love that was there underneath it all. Like you're healing something that already happened by being present now. Maybe every time we choose presence over reactivity, we're sending kindness backwards through time. I know that sounds crazy, but stay with me. Think about it. When someone's cruel to you, it doesn't just hurt in that moment. It changes how you remember other interactions, how you interpret past events. Cruelty ripples backwards, making you question things that felt safe before, but presence does the opposite. When someone's genuinely kind to you, when they really see you, it ripples backwards too. Suddenly, those past moments when you felt unseen or misunderstood, they feel less significant. Like the kindness you're receiving now was always there, you just couldn't access it before. What if all those moments of suffering in the past are being healed by someone being present right now, not just for you, but for everyone? Like there's this web of connection that operates outside linear time, and every act of genuine presence sends healing backwards through the whole network. Maybe that's why presence feels so powerful. You're not just changing the current moment, you're somehow healing the past and opening up the future. I don't know if that's actually how it works, but I know how it feels. When someone's really present with you, time does something different. The past feels lighter, the future feels more possible. Actually, that's not quite right either. It's more like we're all walking around with the same hurt, just in different shapes. And I've been thinking about this for a while. When you start digging into your own pain, really examining it instead of just carrying it around, you realize something. This isn't just my pain. This is human pain. The fear of not being enough, of being alone, of not mattering, the ache of feeling unseen, misunderstood, disconnected. It's like archaeology. You think you're uncovering something personal, something unique to your story, but the deeper you dig, the more you realize you're uncovering something universal, something that connects you to everyone who's ever lived. When you've really looked at your own suffering, not avoided it or explained it away, but actually sat with it and examined it, you start recognizing it everywhere. In the person who cut you off in traffic, in the co-worker who takes credit for your work, in the friend who always makes everything about themselves. That person being cruel, they're operating from the same wound you have, the same fear, the same sense of not being enough. They're just expressing it differently. Maybe they learned that the best defense is a good offense. Maybe they learned that if you hurt people first, they can't hurt you. But underneath all that defensive behavior is the same basic hurt that you carry, the same longing to be seen, to be valued, to be safe. And once you really understand this, something weird happens. Empathy becomes automatic. It's not a choice anymore. You see someone being difficult, being cruel, being impossible, and instead of reacting to the behavior, you see the hurt underneath. And when you can see the hurt underneath, how can you add to it? It's like once you know everyone's carrying the same basic pain, cruelty becomes, impossible, or at least it stops making sense. It's like being mean to someone because they have the same disease you have. When I see someone acting out, being harsh or cold or dismissive, I can feel the pain that's driving it. Not because I'm psychic or anything, but because I've felt that same pain. We all have. And when you recognize your own hurt in someone else, your natural response isn't to punish them for it. Maybe that's too simple. Maybe some people are just, wired differently. But in my experience, cruelty usually comes from a place of pain. And once you really understand that, once you've done the archaeology on your own suffering and recognized it as universal human suffering, responding with more pain stops making sense. It's like the frequency thing again. When you're tuned into the presence frequency, you naturally tune into the pain frequency too. You can hear it underneath all the noise, all the defensive behavior, all the ways people try to protect themselves from more hurt. There's something else I've noticed. And this might sound completely crazy, but physics says when particles get entangled, what happens to one instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. What if consciousness works the same way? And I'm not saying I understand quantum physics, I don't, but there's something about that idea that feels familiar, like maybe we're all entangled at some level we can't see or measure. When you do the work on yourself, when you really face your own pain and start healing it, something changes. Not just for you, but I don't know how to explain this without sounding like I'm making things up, but it feels like you're healing it for everyone. Maybe when you stop running from your own suffering and start being present with it, you're somehow making it easier for other people to be present with theirs, like there's less resistance in the field. I don't know if that's actually true, but it feels true. Like we're all connected at some level we can't see, and when one person does the work, it creates space for others to do the work too. I've seen this happen. One person in a room gets really present, really here, stops defending, and starts just being. And you can feel the whole energy shift. Other people start relaxing, conversations get more real. People stop performing and start connecting. Their presence gives other people permission to be present. But why does that work? How does that work? Maybe it's because presence is contagious. When someone's operating on that frequency, broadcasting from that place of just being here, it reminds everyone else that it's possible, like they're demonstrating a way of being that we all remember but usually forget. Or maybe it's more than that. Maybe when you heal something in yourself, you're literally healing it in the collective unconscious, like Jung talked about, this shared space where all our pain and all our healing lives. I think about the people who've been present with me during difficult times. They didn't fix anything or solve anything. They just stayed present while I was falling apart. And somehow their ability to be present with my pain made it possible for me to be present with it too. And now when I'm with someone who's suffering, I can stay present in a way I couldn't before. Not because I learned a technique, but because someone else's presence taught me that it's possible to be present with pain without being overwhelmed by it. Maybe that's how healing spreads. One person learns to be present with suffering, and that makes it easier for the next person and the next person until this thing that felt impossible becomes, well, still difficult, but possible. I think it has something to do with actually, maybe I'm overcomplicating this. Maybe kindness is just what happens when you're really here. Not thinking about the past, not worried about the future, just present. When you're fully present, you can't be cruel. Try it right now. Be completely here in this moment, fully aware of where you are, what you're feeling, what's actually happening. And from that place, try to be mean to someone. It's impossible. Your natural response when you're fully present is compassion. Not because you're trying to be good or because someone taught you to be kind, but because presence and cruelty can't exist in the same space. Cruelty requires distance. You have to be disconnected from the present moment to hurt someone. You have to be lost in your story, your pain, your fear, your need to protect yourself. But when you're really here, when you're tuned into the frequency of this moment, kindness isn't something you do, it's something you are. Some people seem naturally tuned in. You meet them, and within minutes you feel like you can breathe deeper, like you can be more yourself. Others, the signal's there, it's always there, but they're not receiving it. Too much static from thinking, planning, defending, performing. And I'm definitely still learning how to tune in myself. There are days when I'm completely lost in my head, running programs from the past, projecting into the future, missing what's right in front of me, missing the frequency entirely. But when you catch it, when you find that signal, everything changes. Not in some dramatic way, but in this quiet, fundamental way. You stop needing to protect yourself so much because you're not carrying around all this extra weight from yesterday and tomorrow. You can actually see the person in front of you instead of seeing your projection of them. And from that place, kindness is effortless. It's like asking why water flows downhill. That's just what it does when there's nothing blocking it. Maybe the whole thing is simpler than I'm making it. Maybe it's not about quantum entanglement, or time travel, or archaeology. Maybe it's just about learning to be here, really here, and trusting that when you are, the right response will emerge naturally. Actually, maybe I'm overthinking this. I could be wrong about all of this. Maybe it's not frequency or quantum anything. Maybe I'm just making connections that aren't there. Maybe I'm taking my own experience and creating some elaborate theory around it that sounds more profound than it actually is. I mean, who am I to talk about the physics of consciousness? I'm an actor. I pretend to be other people for a living. Maybe this whole thing about presence and kindness and frequencies is just, I don't know, wishful thinking. But here's what I know from experience, what I've actually lived through. When I'm present, really present, not lost in my thoughts or my plans or my fears, kindness just happens. I don't have to think about it or force it or remember to do it. It's automatic, like breathing. And when I'm not present, when I'm lost in my head, replaying old conversations or rehearsing future ones, reacting from old wounds or defending against imaginary threats, that's when I'm capable of causing harm. That's when I miss what someone actually needs from me. That's when I respond to my story about them instead of responding to them. So maybe it's not about quantum entanglement or time travel or any of the complex stuff I've been talking about. Maybe it's just about learning to be here, really here, present to what's actually happening instead of lost in the story about what's happening. When you're present, you naturally respond with compassion because you can actually see what's in front of you. When you're not present, you're responding to shadows, to projections, to your own unhealed stuff. So maybe it's not about forcing kindness or trying to be good or working on yourself in some complicated way. Maybe it's just about being here, really being here, and trusting that when you are, the right response will emerge. Maybe presence is the thing, the only thing. Everything else, all the frequency talk and the physics metaphors, maybe that's just decoration. Which brings me to nothing really. I don't have some big answer or system or program you should follow. I don't have the secret to kindness or the solution to cruelty or any of that. Just this observation about presence and kindness, this thing I've noticed about what happens when you're really here versus when you're not. Maybe try it, being really here, right now, not thinking about what you're going to do after this, not replaying something that happened earlier today. Just here, in this moment, aware of where you are, what you're feeling, what's actually happening. See what happens when you're present like that. See what you notice about how you naturally want to respond to the world. I'm not saying it'll solve everything. I'm not saying it's easy. Being present is actually pretty difficult because we're so used to being everywhere else. But maybe it's worth exploring. Maybe kindness is just what we are when we remember to be present, when we tune into that frequency that's always there, always broadcasting. Maybe cruelty is just what happens when we forget, when we get lost in the static of our thoughts and fears and stories. I don't know, but what if it's that simple? What if the thing we're all looking for is just being here,